All right, let's just do one more. Now, Chris Coons has recently gotten and I want to put up her information in a minute on our, you can pull it from Twitter or wherever. Go to her website, because this is Chris Coons, Jess Scarane. I interviewed her for Ring of Fire. I think it was this past week, and you can check it out on our YouTube channel. And there was recently a poll that showed that Chris Coons is vulnerable to a generic progressive female challenger. And now he has one. It is JessForDelaware.com to get more information on Jessica Scarane. But this is why people want to primary Chris Coons. This is a guy who's come out and said, if we get the Senate back in Democratic control, we should reinstitute the filibuster so that Democrats are prevented from filling court seats in the way that Mitch McConnell has and Donald Trump has. That's literally what he has called for. The complete disempowerment of a Democratic Senate. Why does he do that? Because he is a Republican. He ran as a Democrat, but he is in his heart a Republican. And so as a Democrat, he can prevent the Democrats from actually using any power to change or to even come close to even mitigating. They can't possibly what Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump have done. He has, in a public forum, said that partisanship, that history is going to look back on this era where we have diversity in the Senate and see it as one of the causes for this partisanship. I'm not exaggerating. That's what he said. Now, he would interpret that as meaning something different. All I'm saying is that because we have such diversity now, there's more things to disagree on. What? Yeah. Or maybe that's the way it should be then. And here he is pretending that if John McCain were around, that John McCain would fix everything.
You know, Chuck, I really miss the voice of John McCain in these moments. He was the sort of senator who was able to call his colleagues to put our national security and our country over party.
You know, our politics has become so tribal now. Think of this. You have a Democratic member of Congress who's now going to switch parties. And it may be simply because he couldn't politically survive in the Democratic Party by opposing impeachment. What does that tell you? Should the Democratic Party be a big enough tent that you can vote against impeachment and stay a good standing member of the Democratic Party or not?
Well, I do think we need to have a wider aperture for our politics in America and less purity tests. But that particular case is someone who is underwater, as you referenced, by, I think, 26 points among his own constituency, among the Democrats in his district. It's a very conservative district. I do think that Leader Pelosi wouldn't be moving forward with impeachment if President Trump hadn't forced her hand by committing an unprecedented and pretty striking act of dangling military aid over a vulnerable ally to try and get out dirt on his strongest political opponent.
All right. So there it is. I don't know who is got a more garbage take here. The idea that John McCain, I mean, Chris Coons should get up there and say, like, you know, we are now living in an era where you would have like the presidential candidate of the Republicans would care so little about this country, care so much more about his party and his getting reelected, that he would probably go out in this day and age and appoint some like governor as vice president, some governor from Alaska, whose whole pitch was about guns and Obama being
right-wing and bitter, clinging, proud clingers.
Yeah, like
Palling
that
around
John
with
McCain.
terrorists.
Like we have an era that where, I mean, if we could go back in time and prevent John McCain from putting the country ahead of his party by appointing Sarah Palin, we would not have Donald Trump today. I'm being facetious about putting the country ahead. He put himself and his party above the country when he appointed Sarah Palin. It was probably the most consequential decision he may have made up to that point in his political career. That and pretending to, support campaign finance because of what he did in the Keating 8 scandal. But that was probably the most consequential decision he had made in his entire political career, was to nominate Sarah Palin. That impacted our politics for 8 years.
Also an endless warmonger. But I just want to say, I mean, what's funny is that to the extent John McCain deviated from Republicans, it's because he was a narcissist. So it's like, you're basically, I really miss narcissism over party discipline, which, okay. And the other thing I'd like to say is, why is it, and other people have made this point, but it should be stated, Justin Amash, whatever you think of him, and it's not my politics by any stretch, but the guy already had a little bit of a brand built as like an authentic libertarian, quit the Republican Party, and wrote like the only thread to this day I've seen on Twitter from a politician actually breaking down the merits of the case. And that's just sort of like, I mean,
that's gone into the ether.
Yeah,
it's
like maybe he'll run for president.
Like,
the only angle they found on
listen
it.
to this.
And this irrelevant backbencher who is not going to get reelected in any scenario is national news.
I want to know.
Chuck Todd. Hold on, let me just say this. Chuck Todd is suggesting that by not voting for impeachment, that in the Democratic voter. The Democratic voter, right? Now, this is not even like, there's no party leaders.
Speaking of blaming the electorate.
Right. The Democratic voters are too caught up in a purity test mentality as to decide they don't like this guy anymore. And obviously it's not just because of this, but I think largely because of it. That they're being intransigent when the Republicans, like, to say the words Justin Amash amongst Republicans now is like, you might as well be, spitting on a replica of Jesus. And that never comes up. I mean, how demented is our media here that is the framing? Yeah. That is the framing. Justin Amash left the Republican Party, and you never saw boo about it on TV. He was driven out of the Republican Party, and not just by the voters. I don't think the voters necessarily were ready to do that. It was the party leadership. Made it clear, you're persona non grata here. I mean, it is stunning.
Yeah, not only that, I mean, wasn't he the one who had some like anecdotal evidence from town halls that when he actually broke it down for people, they were like, oh yeah,
we played that clip
that.
Down.
Yeah.
I want to know why folks like Chris Coons like to talk about the big tent of the Democratic Party, but they only ever seem to want to expand it to the right. Like, it should be big enough to include Republicans, certainly, but not progressives or Democratic Socialists.
Right. Bernie Sanders is completely out of the mainstream, but
we want to expand the voting. We want to expand the aperture of our voting, but not the franchise.
Exactly. Unbelievable. That guy needs to be beat.